always arrive right on the hour, but tonight we have a different type of problem. So get cozy, get to know your neighbor, and be creative in terms of seating. I think we're getting close to the end. Do you want to? It's your show, buddy. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead, I think, and get started. I'm Warren Kistner. I'm director of the Hart Career Center here at the university. And I think all of you know that we offer a variety of programming throughout the year on topics that you would expect. Resume writing, interviewing, job search strategies. One of the things that we started to hear a few years ago was the importance of financial literacy. And we also heard that nobody was really providing this. Now, you might get some of these tips in class, but once you graduate, these things called student loans have a funny way of coming due. There are some potholes that I didn't avoid, but I'm hoping you'll avoid with the guidance of our speaker this evening. So we added a program on financial planning to our schedule, and it has been very successful. I'm going to let Pat Zajac, who is our special events coordinator for the Career Center, introduce this evening's speaker, but I am going to ask you something. I know that all of you are busy, but I would appreciate it unless you absolutely have to be somewhere that you hang in here with us until the end, because I think that's respectful of our speaker. He's donated his time to come out and join us tonight, so if at all possible, please stay with us until the end of the program. I know you're going to find tonight's information to be extremely helpful. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Thanks, Warren. Well, first off, as Warren said, thank you so much for coming out. Thank you for sitting on the floor. This is a really important event, and we couldn't do it without the support of student organizations. So first off, American Marketing Association, AMA, helped promote it, Alpha Kappa Psi, Investment Club, Collegiate Women's Network, and Accounting Society. So when we have these events, it's important to have the support of RSOs on campus, and we couldn't. So thank you all for helping with the promotion. And just before I introduce Kevin, we do have a couple upcoming panels that can be very beneficial for you. So anyone interested in healthcare, we're having a healthcare panel next Tuesday, 7 p.m. in the same place. We're having two doctors that are alumni, a pediatrician, orthopedic surgeon, an OT that's an alum, a physical therapist who works in town. He's actually just was named an NFL referee, so he'd be really cool, a PA, and a dentist. So anyone interested in healthcare, no matter what year in school you are, come out next Tuesday, 7 p.m. in the Welcome Center. And also our last panel of the year is our legal alumni panel, so anyone interested in a career in law, Thursday, April 12th at 7 p.m. in the Welcome Center as well. We're having 6 awesome alumni that are either lawyers or are in graduate school now to become a lawyer. So for that event, you just have to register just so we have a sense of what questions we want to ask. So just check your email out in the next couple of days and you will get an email. So anyone interested in healthcare, next Tuesday, and then Thursday, April 12th for our healthcare, or for our legal panel. And then, so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Kevin Kuebler. For the last 2 years, he's come to campus to present about financial literacy. He has over 25 years of experience in accounting and finance. He advises clients every day on financial literacy and investing. And as students, as Warren said, it's so important for all of us. So we're going to have to pay off loans soon, especially seniors. We graduate in a couple months. Our loans will kick in. And there's so much we can do as students that we can save money to really have some income after college and start saving for retirement now. So without further ado, Kevin Kuebler, and thank you so much for donating your time today.
Thank you.
Well, it is a great pleasure to be with all of you today. There is nothing more exciting to have a room full of students who are excited about financial literacy, or who will be by the end of this. That's my goal, at least. All right. Who thinks they're pretty financial literate? Just by show of hands. Anyone? Yeah, very few. That's one of the things that I found. I've got kids, and we're going to get into this, but just as a brief intro, my kids are 22 and 21, so they're in your shoes. They've been there, and we just don't do a good job in our world of teaching some of the things to help get you started. And tonight's going to be like drinking through the fire hose, all right? We're going to throw a lot of stuff at you. Some of it's going to stick and some isn't. I'm going to make sure that there are business cards out there. I just sent Pat to my car with my keys. That's probably not a smart thing to do. But I brought more business cards because I think I'm going to need them with this group. And if he doesn't come back, someone else has to get me back home tonight. But anyway, my goal is for you to take something home with you today, all right? Take something that in a further life you think about and say, you know what, I learned about that. At least I know I need to get help or guidance or something related to whatever that topic is. Okay? So again, thank you for letting me be here. I hope this is going to be great. Let me tell you a little bit about who I am. You can see I've got a couple sets of letters after my name. What I tell my clients is that just means I know a thing or two. All right? I do have an accounting degree from Truman State University. I bleed purple, not green, but I'm very happy to have green on. Not the right green, but at least a green on today. I was very active in college, did a lot of stuff, and I think those are the things that really help prepare us to be great in our world when we're active in college. And you can see what those abbreviations mean. This is my wonderful family. I married a Truman State grad as well. We met and she went on to law school. I've got 2 kids. My son is selling livestock feed, owned a house at 21. That just says that we were doing something well. I'll get more into that. My daughter is a senior by hours, junior by years, and she's at Truman as well. So all 4 of us are Truman State people. You can see they get their good looks from their mother, not from their father, which is a good thing. All right? So let me tell you about my start and where I was when I was sitting in your shoes. I graduated in 1990. I had no debt, all right, which was a great thing. I actually had a full-ride academic scholarship. My parents determined that was the only way to go to school. I did have a little bit of savings. I bought a brand new car. And you can see I wrote mistake there. We'll get into that in just a little bit. I got married in 91. I married into debt. All right? My wife went on to law school and had law school loans and no savings. We lived in an apartment for a couple of years. Why? Because we didn't have the money for a down payment. We saved some money. We built our first house. We started as DINKS. Who knows what DINKS stands for?
Dual income, no kids.
Double income, no kids. That's not a thing today, but that's a pretty sweet life when you've got 2 incomes, you don't have kids, because just so you know, kids are expensive, all right? They are. And even back in those days, kids were super expensive. And then blessed with a son and a daughter. And one of the things here is that we had to keep up with the Joneses. We sometimes put our wants over needs, all right? And that's a really big distinction in understanding the difference between what you need and what you want. And I know for a fact that most of us believe we need a whole lot more than what we truly need. Those are called wants. And we'll go into some of that again. So that's how I started, all right? Let's talk about your opportunities as you get out of school, all right? One of the big things is that oftentimes we're going to have debt, all right? We're going to have college loans, maybe some credit cards, maybe you're going to buy a car, have car loans. You want to establish good, if not great, financial habits right from the start. Because if you don't, it's hard to get into those later, all right? Doing bad habits is tough. And then getting into the good ones later. And you can see living below your means, all right? Every day I work with people who, most of them, do not have millions and millions and millions of dollars that can live super comfortably on. All right? Doing the right planning, they're going to be fine. But if we do some things early on in life to make good decisions, that's going to make a big difference later on. Another opportunity is merging your life with a significant other. That is a major event and one that you must understand the financial consequences of. All right? And starting your savings, and then dreaming and planning for the future. So these are all the things that we're going to talk about, and we're going to do them in 10 different sections. All right? If you have questions, raise your hand. I'll be happy to answer your questions throughout. I will stick around and answer as many questions as you need at the end. So if it's a more personal question or something, we can do that. But if you have questions that are for the good of the group, please raise your hand. I'll answer those as I go. All right? So number 1, managing debt. Who's going to come out of school debt-free? I see a few hands. Raise them high. That's a great thing. What a great thing. All right? But you can see that that's not most of you. So for the rest of you, we have to start thinking about the debt and how we manage that. Okay? Basically, you may have 3 different types of debt. Credit cards, student loans, car loans. All right? These are things that you might have. One of the things I added here recently, a lot of people don't understand or get the need to have a credit card. Who has a credit card? In their own name, not in a parent's name. It's got to be in your name only. Okay, good. If you don't, go get one. Okay? I want you to be very responsible with it, but you have to build credit. All right? I mentioned my son bought a house at 21. Do you think he did that if he didn't have a credit card and have a credit history? All right? No, you can't do that. So get a credit card, buy a tank of gas, pay it off every month, and just build some history. All right? That's an important part to getting out into the world and being able to do the other things that are so important to you. All right? Don't, however, make mistakes with credit cards. I sat down with a couple at their house one evening. They had young kids, so I went to their house. And we were trying to do some planning, and I said, okay, what's your biggest thing? We want to manage our debt. We want to figure out. So we got out all these credit cards, started adding them up, $86,000 of credit card debt. Okay? And some of you are looking at me like, really? All the stories I tell you are real. I'm not making them up. These are all real life. But they had $86,000 of credit card debt. And most of them were at 19% or more. They were paying over $2,000 a month in interest on credit cards. Okay? You can go really south if you do credit cards wrong. Credit cards, if you're going to use them, pay them off every month without exception. Okay? Credit cards typically have the highest rate of interest. So if you're dealing with some debt, you don't want to take the smallest piece of debt. You want to take the one with the highest interest rate and get rid of that first. Okay? It seems logical, but most people don't think about it that way. Okay? Car loans second, and then student loans last. Let's talk about student loans for a minute. What happens if you're not here tomorrow to your student loan? What's that?
They get inherited by your parents.
It depends. What kind of loans do you have? Do you have your parents co-signed on those loans? If your parents co-signed and you happen to pass away, his parents are stuck with his debt. Okay? A lot of people don't think about that until we rack up $100,000 of debt and heaven forbid something horrible happens to a young person, and then the parents are taking care of this debt. All right? We're going to get into some things to take care of that. But what about student loans that are only in your name, funded by the government? What happens to those? Anyone? Interactive part of the day. They go away. All right? So you want to be cautious in using loans that are co-signed with your parents because there's an additional obligation that might be there if you weren't. Okay? So in managing the debt, you want to try to make sure you get rid of highest interest rate stuff first. Okay? Debt is not always bad. You just have to be able to manage it. The debt that you incur has allowed you to get the education and to get the job that you're going to have, correct? And if you didn't have that debt, you wouldn't have that job. So it's not a bad thing. You just want to be able to manage it properly and be able to pay it off in a very smart manner. Okay? So when we think about debt, one of our goals here is to only carry debt on a house. Okay? And in a perfect world, not even that. But that gives you an idea of how to manage those pieces. Okay? Living on dirt. Who feels like they're living on dirt today? Anyone? Okay. Good. You don't have to. So one of the things, so when we get out of school, if we're managing our debt, we're managing an apartment, we're managing a car, we're managing all of these other expenses. The question is, how do we make all of those dollars work, okay? If you have a car, does it run without costing you an arm and a leg? Then keep it. Remember what I said about my new car? What was that for me? It was a mistake, okay? You know, when I got a job in public accounting, I thought I earned the right to a nice car, all right? And it was a great car. I loved it. I had to have it repainted within a month because where I bought it in St. Louis, it had acid rain on it. So if you're a car person, all right, and you got to get a brand new car repainted in the first month, it sort of stinks, all right? But I would have done that differently. I would have either bought a lesser new car, all right, or I would have bought a used car. I would not have spent the money that I did because I could have been doing a lot of the other things that I have in my presentation instead. All right? But I had a really nice car. It's a Pontiac Grand Prix, two-door, looked like a airplane in the dash. It was pretty darn cool. All right? Rent. Share if you can. If you go to a big city, rent is outrageous. I've got a client who works in Boston. All right? Boston rent is ridiculous. All right? You have to share. Typically, when you're in college, you share anyway, right? So if you want to manage your expenses, you want to pay down debt, you want to do some things, think about sharing as you move out. Not that you need to do it forever, but for a while. Vacations, keep them simple and fun. You have to enjoy, life is too short not to enjoy it today, right? We can plan all we want, and we can have all the money in the bank, but if we don't enjoy a little bit of life today, life can stink, all right? So make sure that you're enjoying that. Make sure that you are enjoying some vacations and not sitting in your apartment and putting all your money away, all right? Because I'm going to tell you that's an important thing to do, all right? And yes, you need to do it, but enjoy the vacations. Keep them simple and fun. And beer, you buy it on sale just like you do now. It's no different, all right? Just like now. So, you know, some goals. We want to be able to have zero debt. We want to be able to start retirement savings early, which all of these things are going to allow us to do. And we want to be able to put money down on a home. If you remember, I mentioned that I rented an apartment for 2 years. Why? Because I didn't have enough cash to be able to put a down payment. All right? Typically, you want to put 5 to 20% down. 20% is sort of a magic number. But you want to be able to put cash down on your home so that you're not paying PMI, private mortgage insurance. So typically when you get out of school, you have to save up that cash. My experiences, we took a couple years to save up, had that cash, and then we were able to move on to a home, because we'll talk about ownership here in just a little bit. Okay? Let's talk about saving for retirement. When you get out of school, if you can start saving immediately, you are much better than most of the world. I just had clients in my office today at 2 o'clock, and I told them, I said, I talk about you guys all the time, right? Because these are wonderful clients, they're wonderful people. They came to me, they were in their 50s, and they said, Kevin, we're excited, we got our kids through school, debt's all gone, and we're ready to retire. And I said, great, what do you have? They looked at me and they looked at each other, I'm like, well, nothing. And I said, well, we got some work to do, all right? And today I told them, you know what? You've accumulated the dollars you needed to accumulate. You can now retire. And so she said, in September, I'm going to be done, all right? But you don't want to be those people that get to a great point in their life and say, I'm ready, and not have anything, all right? So let's talk about some of the things. When you get out, all right, I'm just going to put a couple of these up and then we'll talk about them. There are opportunities for you to save. Most of you have heard of 401ks. 403b is a similar thing, just in a nonprofit or hospital type situation where you'll see 403bs. IRAs, Roth, employee stock option plan, those are all different types of retirement plans. All right? In the 401k, let's say you get out, you get started, and your company offers you a 401k. What a great place to put your money away. Okay? It'll come out of your paycheck. You will never see it, and you got savings. Right? What a great thing. If you don't have a company that offers a retirement plan, and some companies aren't, it's, you know, depending on the size of the company or different things, They may not have a plan. And you may be able to use then what's an IRA or a Roth IRA. Who can tell me the difference between a Roth and a traditional IRA? Somebody? Anyone? Anyone? Yes, sir.
Timing of the tax.
Timing of tax. Help me with that. When do taxes come on an IRA?
When you put it in,
Okay.
and the Roth is when you take the money out. Or is it the
You got it backwards, but it was a darn good effort. So the difference between an IRA and a Roth is how you are taxed. If you put money into a traditional IRA or a traditional 401k, right, you get a tax break today. Typically, when you first get out of school, taxes aren't your biggest issue, okay? If you get the tax break, great. If you're making tons of money, 6 figures and that kind of stuff, taxes may be an issue. But if it's not an issue, I'm going to encourage you to use a Roth. With the Roth, you do not get a tax break today. So no tax break today, but those dollars are completely tax-free when I take them out. All of the growth and all of the gains and all of what I put in are completely tax-free when I take them out. In a perfect world, I like to have both a taxable and a tax-free bucket. Okay? And different times in life, as you move up in life, you may get to a point, you want to get to a point, where you no longer can contribute to a Roth IRA. Okay? Because there are IRS limits, and you might not. So when you first get out of school, the one thing you want to think about is contributing to one or the other. You can put, in today's law, up to $5,500 a year into your IRA or your Roth. So if we talk about savings, in the next 40 years, right, let's say we put $5,500. That's a magic number because that's the maximum that you can put into a Roth or an IRA. And you just put that away for 10 years. Okay, so $55,000 is what you put away. And you don't put another dime in. At age 60, you're going to have over $800,000. Okay, assuming 8% rate of return. Make sure you read all my fine print that my compliance people make me put on here. If, on the other hand, you saved $2,000 a year for 40 years, so $80,000, you're only going to have just over $500,000. This is called the time value of money, all right? The more money you put away early, the more. So all of us would like to have the 800 versus the 500, right? And most of us aren't going to just put it away for 10 years and stop. However, the reality of having kids and different things like that, say if I can put it away before I have kids when I'm a dink, okay, when I have the income to do it, then that's a good time to do it. And oh, by the way, that was a better option than putting in a smaller amount for a longer period of time. Okay? So let's talk about Social Security. Social Security is a program where you put money in, comes out of your paycheck each and every time. All right? All those who are working today, you've seen that come out of your paycheck. Those dollars, all right, are intended for you to receive when you retire. Okay? Who knows what happens in 2033, sorry.
We're going negative.
Yeah. So what does that mean to you?
We pay for the older generation that's retiring right now, and so there won't be enough of us to pay for the amount of them that are retiring.
So does that scare you?
No, because then it'll go back into the positive in 20, or it'll flatten back out in like 2036 or something like that.
You think so?
It's supposed to.
The math doesn't work.
It's such a cost.
The Government Accounting Office tells us that in 2033, Social Security starts to go backwards, all right? And I don't know, there's a lot of different answers to this, all right? I don't know what the answer is going to be. My point in this presentation is that I want you to be the ones that think about your retirement, not relying on somebody else, okay? Unless you have a very rich uncle and aunt that are going to leave you a ton of money when they die, all right? If that's your retirement plan, great. Please introduce me to your uncle and aunt, all right? If not, I want you to think about who really cares about your retirement, and the answer is you, all right? When my dad retired, he called me one day, and he said, thank you. You're welcome, what'd I do? He said, well, I got my Social Security check, and I just want to thank you for putting in, all right? We are not having enough kids today, and our population is living longer, so the math just doesn't work really well. all right? I don't know what's going to happen in the future. What I'm going to suggest to you is that I might get what's left, and if I were you, I would be a little bit concerned about what you're going to end up getting, all right? And that's not to be a scary, that's not a political statement or anything. That's only, I want you to be the one that cares about your retirement, all right? And make sure that any of the others is extra, okay? So let's talk about some goals here. And when we talked about the 401k and the 403b, so your company plans at work allow you to put more money away, all right? So you can put 18, and I realized that my last presentation I forgot to update. It's 18.5 in the current year in 2018. So you can put a whole lot more away into your 401k at work, into a 403b. If you don't have those, then you are limited by that 5,500. But you can see the more you put away at an early age, the better off you're going to be in your long haul. Okay? All right. Let's talk about partnerships and marriage and the pursuit of happiness. One of the things that I see more and more is I see divorce on a regular basis. I see what it does to families, and I see what it does to their finances. All right? And financial compatibility is one of the things that will cause more divorces in our world. Okay? Anyone ever heard of swan love? Anyone getting married? All right. Neither of those. There's a company out there, it's called Swan Love, SWANLUV. Swan Love will give you money for your wedding, and you only have to pay it back when you get a divorce. Okay? This is real. You can go look it up. The concept here is interesting, and the reason I bring it up is because what are they betting on? All right? They're betting on the fact that more than half of our marriages are going to end in a divorce. Okay? And likely the interest rate that you're going to be paying back is going to be significant. Okay? I encourage anyone, all of my clients who have kids who are getting married or marriage age, I encourage them to have a conversation with me. And I want to talk about how each individual thinks about finances. Okay? In any partnership, you have to understand how the other one feels. And you may have, in my family, because in my family, what's hers is hers, and what's mine is hers, and everyone's happy. Okay? Yeah, all the ladies laughed at that one. But that's how it is in our family, but it works. All right? If you don't have those conversations, if you haven't talked about the spending and limits and saving, and your thoughts on savings versus your thoughts on savings versus my thoughts on savings, if you don't go into a partnership, if you don't go into a relationship having those conversations, typically you are doomed to fail. All right? When I have a young couple come in, I'll ask the question, do you have individual accounts or do you have joint accounts? Okay? And what I found is those people who have maintained individual accounts, they're just ready for the divorce. It's so much easier, right? Because I haven't shared it. So if we combine, if we think of this as a combined thing, and we want to be together, we want to put our dollars together. That's why what I told you works so well. What's hers is hers and what's mine is hers. And we're all pretty darn happy. Okay? But this is one of the things, most recently I had clients that have been married 43 years and are getting a divorce. And both of them are worse off. And I'm not going to make any arguments for the need or no need for divorce or anything like that. What I'm talking about is purely financial. Okay? Both of them are have paid, because it came out of their funds, money for attorneys. All right? I worked with a young couple, and the guy was he paid like $60,000 for attorney fees. Okay? That's a lot of money to get a divorce, and then we separate the assets. And neither person typically ends up in the same lifestyle. Okay? So financially, you want to understand the need for a good partnership. And my goal down here, choose once and choose wisely. Okay. All right, let's talk about ownership. I talked about renting an apartment, and I talked about owning my house. When I left my apartment, what did I take with me? Just the stuff I took in, right? I had no ownership, I had no equity, I didn't have anything in my apartment. I needed it because I needed a roof over my head, and my rent paid for that space. But when I left, I didn't take anything, okay? If I own a house and I leave some years later, I have equity, right? I've earned some of my house, all right? It still may have some loans on it, but I own something, okay? So home ownership is a great thing, but you have to be ready to be a homeowner. I told you I took 2 years before I was ready to buy a house, okay? But being a homeowner, you build equity, all right? There are tax benefits and a mortgage interest deduction. And overall, though, a best mortgage, if we had no mortgage, we certainly would like that. But how many people can buy a $100,000, $150,000 house with no mortgage? Not most of us, all right? So you're going to have some debt, and it's okay as long as that debt is getting you to some ownership, all right? Let's talk about some other types of ownership. Anyone have their own business? Small business or something? What do you do?
I copy music manuscripts.
Copy legally?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious. Okay. So what's it like to be an owner?
It's very time consuming.
It is. And how's your boss?
It's okay.
But he can be a real idiot sometimes.
You really can.
Absolutely. The bad thing, and I'm my own business owner, all right? The bad thing is that your boss may be an idiot, okay? But the flexibility and the things that come with that ownership, with the fact that it's yours, and the fact that you can make or break this, it's pretty cool. It's a good feeling, all right? I went from making some very good money as a consultant to making zero and having zero assets under management to do what I'm doing today, all right? That's a huge risk. Typically, if you're a business owner, you're going to be taking some risk of some sort. Typically, that's a financial risk, that's an emotional risk, it's a time risk. But if you do it well, that risk will pay off. And I hope yours pays off well for you and that you do well in that. But being an owner is a great thing. You can go into work and be very happy getting a paycheck. All right? My wife has worked for State Farm for it's more than that now, it's 26 years, something like that, for a long time. She's super happy over there. Benefits are good. Sometimes as a owner, I don't, my benefit package sort of stinks, you know, the things that I provide, my time off and those things, they sort of stink. But it's a great thing to be that owner. And I encourage you to take the risk and be the owner if that's where your comfort level is. Okay? Anyone own individual stocks? Anyone own Apple? In Microsoft? Anything? Got a couple people? You are an owner, all right? You own part of that company. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Even though it may be a small part, all right? You are still a shareholder and functionally can make decisions. You get a proxy statement for voting and that kind of stuff. Do you use it?
I proxy it.
You do? Okay. You let somebody else do that? Okay. So when you own an individual stock, you are an owner of that business. It's neat to be an owner, all right? And even if it's a little piece, even if it's Walt Disney or if it's, you know, whatever, Amazon or whatever, there's some great places to be an owner. And having that and bearing and managing the risk that it takes to be an owner often gives you huge rewards as well. So let's talk about insuring. What's insurance? What does it basically do for us? This is, again, the interactive part of our day. Somebody help me. What do we do with insurance?
It's the transfer of risk.
There is a textbook answer, and I love it. It's a transfer of risk. It takes risk off of our plate and puts it onto someone else. And we pay somebody for that risk, right? And there are companies that want to take your money and will manage that risk. But there's a lot of different types of insurance. Every single one transfers risk, right? and it costs us money to transfer that risk. We don't do it for free, right? If we had all the money in the world, we may not need as much insurance in some types here. However, the state of Illinois is still going to require that you insure your vehicle, correct? Even though you could have plenty of money and be self-insured, the state of Illinois still requires that you insure it, okay? So let's talk about different types of insurance. Some of these you'll understand and some we'll have to think about a little more. Health insurance. Health insurance is so critical in today's world. And typically as students, you're on your parents' insurance. You can be there till age 26, which is a great thing. But make sure that when you look at a new company that you're looking at, you look at the benefits. You look at what they provide from a health insurance. Do they provide all of it? Do they provide a piece? How much is yours? Those are all things that are very critical in transferring the risk if something happens to you. All of you are invincible. You're all college kids. Nothing is ever going to happen to you. I will tell you something will, all right? And you need to make sure that you don't forget about providing for that health insurance, okay? Let's talk about life insurance. Who of you needs life insurance today? Here's the question I'm going to ask you. Who's worse off financially if you're not here tomorrow? I'm going to pick on you, all right? Because you said that your parents are co-signed on loans.
Right.
So who's worse off financially if you're not here tomorrow?
Family.
Your parents. Okay? So could they have, or do they maybe, have an insurance policy on you to cover that in case you weren't here?
Probably not, because it would suck if I died for them.
Absolutely. It would suck worse if they got to pay back the loans and you're not here. All right? But this is a use for life insurance that most college students and their parents never think about. All right? I talked to one young person who had $315,000 of student loans. He was a pharmacist. He was making good money, but he had $315,000 of student loans. If I were his parent and I had co-signed, I'm going to have a life insurance policy to make sure that gets paid back. Okay? Life insurance is needed when somebody is worse off financially if you're not here tomorrow. Okay? If you have no debt, the sad thing is you may not need life insurance today, and that's okay, because no one's worse off financially. It's going to be a sad day, don't get me wrong. All right? But no one's worse off financially, right? Okay? I actually make money, I think, if my son dies tomorrow. I love my son, he's going to be fine. But as you move on into life and you get married, all right, and you're living a dual income, all right, who's worse off financially? Your partner, your spouse, all right? When you have kids, who's worse off financially? It's that time when you really need to start thinking about insurance. Two types of insurance: term insurance and permanent insurance. We talked earlier about renting an apartment and buying a house. I'm going to liken the two types of insurance to renting an apartment and buying a house. Term insurance is like renting the apartment. I use it for a certain period of time, and when I leave it, it's done. Okay? When I first had kids, my need for insurance was here. Okay? Because I got young kids, if I'm going to pay for college, if I'm going to put money for retirement, I got a huge need for life insurance. All right? Term insurance is cheap. I can get term insurance really cheap. I can get a lot. I can cover myself, and then 20 years later, it goes away. But what's happened to my needs at that point in time? I've got my kids in school. I've saved for college. All of those things are done. I don't need the additional life insurance. Okay? Permanent insurance is like buying the house. Permanent insurance has cash value. All right? It costs a lot more, but you're able to put money into it. It's able to build up cash. And those dollars can be used to help pay for things later on, or depending on how you structure the policy, just increase the death benefit. Okay? So two important types of life insurance you want to make sure you fully understand when you get into looking at life insurance, the different types, and the type that fits your need when you get out. I'm going to suggest that when you get out, A whole life, a universal life is not what you need. That's what insurance agents are going to try to sell you because they make more on that, right? But that's not what you need if you're truly looking for coverage. Okay? Asset insurance, that's for your car, your home, rental insurance for your apartment, those type of things. Tell me about family income. Can I insure my income? Anyone? It's called disability insurance. Okay? So let's say I'm a skier, and not a good one, and I go down the hill and I run into a tree, and I don't die, but I'm disabled. All right? I got all my life insurance, but that doesn't help me, doesn't help my wife, doesn't help my kids, because I'm not dead, but I can't go work, so what do? It's a product called disability insurance. Many companies, when you get out into the workforce, will provide, sometimes free of charge, some at a very small charge, long-term disability. Some will provide short-term disability. Disability protects your income, all right? And is in those situations where you can't work and still want to have things to provide for. That's a piece of insurance that we do poorly in our world. Most of us don't think about that piece, and we don't think about it until it happens, okay? And then liability and an umbrella, we'll talk about that in another day because we've got time issues. So let's talk about basics in investing, all right? In our classroom, we may learn a little bit about stocks and bonds and different things like that, all right? The thing that I want to make sure that you understand is what these things are and how they fit for you, okay? There is no one size fits all. It's all very different. But you need to understand when you get out into the world whether you want to be your own advisor or you want to have somebody help you. In either case, you need to know the basics so that you're doing it well and whoever's working for you is doing it well for you. All right? So earlier we talked about stocks. Stocks are ownership of a company. Okay? What's a bond? Somebody help me from this side. These guys are tired. Somebody help me. What's a bond? It's sort of, and it can be from the government, it can be from a company. Okay? So you actually are loaning them money, okay, and they're paying you interest. That's typically what it is, right? So in this scenario, you're getting interest, and hopefully, depending on the entity, right, if it were a government entity, you may or may not get your principal back, all right? But you're going to invest so that you, of course, get your principal back as well, right? So those are stocks and bonds. Mutual funds are a group of stocks and bonds, okay? When we think about investing, oftentimes we go right to returns, but we don't think about risk, all right? The biggest thing in investing is what's my risk? What risk is associated with my individual investment? If I have one stock, and I'm going to own Enron, anyone know that story? Got some laughter, okay? Enron was a wonderful company and went belly up and the stock was worthless. If I only had one stock and it was Enron, my risk is huge and my actual return was nothing, okay? When I move to mutual funds, I have maybe 1,000 stocks in one fund, right? I have investment professionals who are choosing the stocks that go into those funds. Right? Because I'm not smart enough. I don't know all the history of these 1,000 companies. I don't have the time to research those. So I use other people, and that's what mutual funds are. It's a group of stock, and it helps me spread my risks. Group of stocks, group of bonds, or mixture, it can be all of the above. But it allows us to spread the risk. Right? We talk about risk appropriate and diversified. All of us understand the idea of all of our eggs in one basket, right? Okay? If all of my eggs are in one basket and I fall, what happens to all my eggs? They're gone. Okay? So if I spread those, if I diversify, if I have large-size companies, if I have small-size companies, if I have international companies, if I have all of these different things, I'm diversified. And no matter what happens, all right, that diversification is a good long-term investment strategy. So I want to make sure that when I'm investing, I'm managing my risk and I'm doing it in a well-diversified portfolio. Can you do it individually with stocks? Absolutely. But the trading cost, if you're going to buy 1,000 different stocks versus one mutual fund, the numbers don't always work out so well, right? So my goal here is I want you to know enough to be able to monitor your situation. I need you to be an educated consumer. You've heard of Bernie Madoff? Okay, Bernie made off with a whole lot of money that wasn't his, all right? He swindled a whole lot of people in a Ponzi scheme, all right? I don't know enough about that situation, what those investors were seeing, but I believe that if you are an educated investor, those things are going to be evident to you, all right? I don't know that. I have no idea what they did or how they covered that up, but you don't want to be one of his clients, and you would not be now because he's in jail. Okay? All right, let's talk about jobs and the grass on the other side. In my early career, I started with Coopers & Lybrand. It's now PricewaterhouseCoopers, one of the largest accounting firms in the world. And then I got a job offer from one of my clients, which is pretty typical in the industry, which was a neat thing. And then I took a job later on with another company that I met at a conference because I was helping them find somebody, and they ended up at the end of the week, they said, yeah, we really want you, all right, which is a nice thing. The one thing that you want to think about is choosing and making good career decisions, all right? Sometimes that first one, it may sound great, all right? It may not be what it's all cracked up to be, all right? You need to research those opportunities. You need to understand the benefits. You need to understand the company. You need to understand where that company's headed and the makeup and the owners and all of the leaders of the company to know that you're going to have a long-term career there, okay? And then when you leave, one of the things that and I made a big mistake. I left a lot of money on the table. When I went from one job to another, if I would have stayed another 2 months, I would have been vested in part of my retirement plan, all right? I wasn't thinking, I didn't know enough, I didn't do enough of my research, and I left a bunch of money at the other company because I wasn't smart enough to understand and make that decision. If I would have waited just 2 more months, I would have had those dollars, okay? So again, real life decision, did it kill me? No. Did it cost me some money? Absolutely, all right? The next line is work is not easy. It's work, and work's a 4-letter word, all right? So when you get out, you are expected to work. If I have people that work for me, it's not I'm sitting on my phone all day or anything like that. I'm working. I'm doing the things that I was trained to do, and I got out in the world to do, okay? Never burn any bridges. We truly live in a small world, and I will guarantee you that each of you will experience this in your life, that you're going to run into someone way down the road that maybe was sitting in this room with you today, right? A business associate, a competitor, something like that. Do not burn those bridges. It's easy when things don't go our way. It's easy to want to, fire off some comments or a post or something like that. Those things will come back to haunt you. Be careful in the business world never to burn any bridges, because it truly is a small world, and whether that's in this city, whether it's in this state, this country, or the entire world, you will run into people, and you want to be very smart about who you're running into. And the goal here is to wake up and be happy in what you do every day, all right? I will tell you that every morning I get up and I love going into work. I love doing what I do. I feel like I make a difference every day for my clients, and I very much am happy doing what I do. Is everybody happy when they go into work? All right? Those that are working different things, you're probably like, oh no. And the thing is, sometimes this is just a short-term thing. You're working right now in college just to pay some bills and to get to the next thing, right? Sometimes you just got to suck it up and not worry about being happy at that point. But you go do your job, make your money, and move on. when you're in the real world, it is important to wake up and be happy. It truly is miserable to go in and not enjoy what you're doing if you're going to do that 8 hours, 12 hours each and every day. Okay? So find a place that's happy. The money is a great thing, right? But there's a happy medium between what you're getting paid and what the happiness component is of that. Okay? All right, so let's talk about family. And I know this is further, because no one said they were thinking marriage or anything like that, so this is probably a little bit down the line. But again, as I mentioned at the beginning, these are things I just want you to think about, because when these happen, all right, it's a life-changing event. There's a lot of things to think about. All right, so when you have children, I told you children are expensive. Ask your parents, they will tell you. You are expensive, all right? When you start having children, you will have to be thinking about more health insurance, more life insurance, more cost, all right? If you decide that you want to put some money away for a kid's college, all right, that's more dollars out of your pocket. And daycare, it's like a second mortgage. My wife and I, neither of us, and we feel like we're good parents, but neither of us could be stay-at-home parents. That just wasn't who we were, so we put our kids in daycare. And it was darn expensive. And I talk to people today, and I think about what that is. But when you go down that path, you have to know and understand the cost associated with those decisions. My sister is a teacher, and when she had her son, the trade-off between what she made as a teacher and what they were paying in daycare didn't balance out. And she decided to stay at home because financially it made more sense. And that's where she wanted to be. So again, these are just things when we talk about the financial side of this, we want to make sure we understand all of those decisions. Okay? And we talk about inheritance just a little bit. At some point in your life, there might be inherited assets. All right? Sometimes they come with strings attached. One of the things that I encourage you to do, all right, based on what you're maybe, hopefully, taking away with you today, if you went back and talked to your parents, you might be able to help them think about some things. Think about what they're doing and putting away and thinking about retirement. You want to be able to talk to your parents while you can, and especially as you get older in life and your parents are maybe in need of help. You want to make sure that you are providing guidance and help for them so that from a selfish standpoint, your life is easier as you move forward. Okay? There's a lot of different things as you get through and dealing with that. We're not going to talk about estate planning. All right. This is it's last on my number 10, but to me it's one of the most important things. All right? And you can see my little my picture. It is in giving you receive, and in receiving you give. I had a full ride academic scholarship. My son got that same full ride academic scholarship, which is what enabled him to have some dollars to be able to buy that first house. My wife and I have 3 scholarships at Truman State University that we provide, 2 annual scholarships and 1 that we endow. And we do that because we feel an obligation to give back what we were given at that point in time. Okay? You are very blessed to be sitting here today at Illinois Wesleyan University, and I would tell you that somewhere, sometime, you have an obligation to share what you learned, to share what you have, whether it's time, talent, or treasure, with somebody else, all right? And I will tell you that when you do that, it's a selfish thing, okay? It's not that you're sometimes doing it for them and they can get some great benefit. That's a good thing. But you know what? It feels good. It feels good to serve others. It feels good to give back. It feels good when you're making a difference in helping others, all right? I had always told my kids to wake up every day and think of somebody else. If we could all do that in our world, if we thought about someone else and not ourselves, we're going to be in a lot better place. Our world is going to be in a much better place. All right? Think about what's on your tombstone when you're not here. Okay? So just understand the obligation. And this is something that truly, when you get out You probably won't be in the same place financially as you will later on, all right? But you still have time, you still have talent, you have things that you can give, and make sure that you make that an important part of your life, okay? And the goal here, leave it better than you found it. Okay. So those were the 10 slides. Let's talk about any questions that you might have. I'm open to anything in the world. Yes, ma'am.
What if I've been trying to get a credit card and my parents' credit is not great, and so I've just been having trouble getting one. So it's the first step.
Yeah, sometimes. So the question was, she's having a hard time finding where to get a credit card. Okay, and that's always the first thing, because they want you to have credit so you can get a credit card. All right, and hey, someone's got to start me. We got the cards for my kids through their bank, okay? Typically, they will give you something low, right, so that you have a limit. So your bank would be the first place I would go, all right? The other place I found to be fairly decent, Discover does a decent job in working with college students, all right? So those would be the places I would go first. And especially if you have some dollars there, okay, whether it's small or whatever, they at least know that you have a relationship and that you have some intent to be able to pay that back, okay? And it'll be a small limit to start, but what I encourage you to do is when you start with a small limit, okay, every couple months, either go online and ask for an increase, all right, or call them up and say, hey, can I have a credit increase? Why? Because some point, you're gonna need to buy something big, all right? And if you've got a $200 credit limit, that may not help you. My son wouldn't listen to me, and I told him for years, increase your credit limit, increase your credit limit. My two kids still have a safety net card from mom and dad, which I'm not really proud of saying, but they do. And so when my son has a large purchase that he needs to make, he calls and says, Dad, can I put on your credit card and we'll settle up the money because I don't have enough limit. And so I used the opportunity to say, Adam, yes, I'll be happy to, but did you increase your credit limit so we don't have this problem again later? All right. So think about those things, because later on you're going to want a higher credit limit. You're going to want to use it more, and you're going to pay it off every month, correct? That's the rule here. We're going to pay it off every month. We don't not pay it off. All right? But you're going to need to increase that credit limit. So very good question. Thank you. What else? What else can I answer for you? Yes, sir.
So you said it's super important to pay the credit limit every month, but if you keep your balance constantly at zero, it doesn't actually affect your credit rating. How would you make it pass through so that you get the interest that you can pay back?
No, so if you put nothing on it, my point is don't run a balance over, all right? Because if you run a balance, all right, so if I put 100 and I don't pay it, I only pay the minimum of 10, I got $90 that they're going to charge me interest on, okay? That's the piece that I don't want to have, because typically it's at a 19 or something %, okay? So I always want to pay it off every month. There are going to be times when we just can't pay it. We're going to pay the minimum, and we're going to wait for something to happen to get our additional dollars, right? It's okay. We've all done it at some point in time. But the goal is, and I don't ever want to be responsible for you to be the one with $86,000 of credit card debt because you didn't pay it off every month and it's snowballed on you, right? So that's sort of my point there. Good question. Yes, ma'am.
Down the road, and when we start making money, how much do you recommend needs to go into the savings account versus when you start investing?
Perfect question. So let's talk briefly about your 3 buckets, okay? You have 3 buckets, each and every one of you. You got a short-term bucket, you got a mid-term bucket, and you have a long-term bucket, all right? I don't want to see anything, I'm gonna take that away in just a minute, but typically I don't want to see anything in your long-term bucket until you have some money in your short-term, okay? You need to have 3 to 6 months of your expenses just sitting in cash, because something bad is going to happen, all right? And you need to have cash for that, or you need to have access to money when something bad happens. So that's your short-term bucket. And typically, I would tell you, fill your short-term bucket first, or at least be working on your short-term bucket, okay? Also at that time, then I want you filling your long-term bucket. If you have a 401k and they're going to provide a match, so they're going to give you free money just by putting your money in, okay? You definitely want to do that, all right? And you might skimp a little bit in your short-term bucket with the idea that you're getting free money, all right? The challenge in all of this is doing all of these things, okay? Because she wants to save. She wants to put money in her savings. She also wants to put money in her retirement plan. But she also wants to put money away for a house, and she wants to pay off her debt from student loans. The struggle is doing all of that at the same time, okay? And what I will tell you is instead of an all or nothing, do a little bit of each, okay? Don't think about things as an all or nothing. And one of the things, and I've got business cards in the back for when you leave, I have, and I created this when I started this job, when I made no money, right, and I had expenses. I have a cash flow worksheet. It has income at the top, it has my expenses, it allows me to see the future, right? For any of you who wants it, send me an email, and I will return an email to you with that cash flow spreadsheet, okay? It is a great tool, it should be your friend, okay? I still use mine today, all right? Because I get to see what next month, and the next 2 months, and 3 months, and all the way through the end of this year, I already have a plan of what it's going to look like. Especially when you're managing debt, especially when you're trying to figure out, and oftentimes we get out of school and we're, living paycheck to paycheck. It is a great tool to use, okay? So a little bit of both, short-term bucket first, make sure you have that emergency funds, because you don't, if without that, things will snowball pretty quickly. Okay, did I answer your question?
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, when would someone potentially need more than one credit card, or like what are the pros and cons?
Good question. The question was, when would you need more than one credit card? All right. I carry multiple, but I basically use one. I would need more if my credit card got compromised. I had 1 year, and 5 times my credit card got compromised. Okay, in 1 year, it was bad. And if I had to wait a few days to get my credit card, I don't have another option, all right? And I put everything on a credit card. I think it's a great tool. It allows me to track all of my expenses. I know exactly what I spend. I just have to make sure I got the money to pay it off, all right? That's the key. And sometimes, not everybody takes all the credit cards, all right? If you have a Visa, MasterCard, you're pretty safe. If you have a Discover, some places don't take Discover. If you travel overseas, you're going to find that some places don't. So that would be a need to have a couple, okay, just to provide you with a safety net. Okay, good question. Good question. Yes, sir.
In terms of long term, where would you recommend putting your first dollar of savings in like 401k or Roth?
Good question. So the question was, where would you put your long-term savings? Where would you start?
Like first, yeah.
Yeah. So when you first get started, how are you going to invest? Is sort of what you're asking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, we want to manage risk. If you remember, we talked about risk and managing that. When you're 21, 22 years old, you're getting out of school, and you're going to put money into a retirement plan, when's the first time you can touch that without a penalty? I didn't touch on that earlier. I should have. 59 and a half. Okay? So that's a long time, right? All right? That's 40 years almost. You need to be aggressively positioned. Right? You can bear the ups and downs. You can weather that risk because it's in a bucket that you're not going to touch for 40 years. Okay? So you want to be in aggressive growth type stocks. Bonds, aggressive stocks and mutual funds. That's where you want to be. You would really have no reason being in anything conservative at your age or even through, your 30s. All right? Especially if you're putting new dollars in all the time. Okay? And again, make sure that you're filling your bucket. Make sure that if your company matches 5%, right, you're putting away the 5%. If I put a $100 bill here on the table, and I offered it to you, I bet all you would take it, right? Okay? If your company offers you a retirement plan that provides a match, by golly, take it. Okay? Did I get your question answered?
Yeah.
Okay. Super. What else? Yes?
You mentioned increasing your credit limit. About where would you say is ideal? So like, obviously we're all college students, but about like our 20s, or not 20s, but 30s, where...
Yeah, I wish I had a great answer. It's very dependent on your lifestyle, okay? Dependent upon your income, depending on what you spend. on a, you know, if you're spending $300 on a monthly basis, or you're spending $3,000 on a monthly basis, that changes what your limit needs to be, correct? Okay? I used my credit card, I took my family to Hawaii on points, right? We had 4 swipers, and boy, they were good swipers. And like I said, it enabled me to take advantage of certain things. But again, I always paid it off. I don't have a magic number as to what that is. It's more dependent upon what your lifestyle is and how much you need to be able to cover if you're going to be able to have flexibility in use. And not that you have to have, all right? Because I have a very high credit limit. I don't get close to using all of it. But I got the flexibility if I need it. All right? In financial planning and doing the things that you are doing in all of this, you want to build flexible things. You want to know that if something bad happens, I have options. So if I have a credit limit of $2,000, I've got some flexibility versus having $300 like my son had. All right? So I guess I'm suggesting 300 is not enough. So that may answer your question. All right? What else? Yes?
Is there a financial software that you recommend to your clients?
They're all very different. The Excel spreadsheet is what I recommend to everybody, okay? And it's simple. It's not complicated. It's not a software. It's just a spreadsheet, okay? Find something, if you need it, find something to allow you to track, all right? If you can track your stuff, you can then be able to know what to do with it, all right? If you have no clue, I gave this spreadsheet to a young gentleman, and because he was convinced, he didn't know where all his money was going, all right? And he didn't use the software or anything. I said, just start using the spreadsheet. And so he created the spreadsheet, he put in all of his expenses, and he had a line item that said stupid stuff, although the word wasn't stuff. And so he put in all of this stuff that he figured he didn't need, okay? Software isn't going to track that, right? You need to track that yourself. But you can find, there's all kinds of different things. I've talked to people about Acorn and the idea of, you know, using stuff like that. There's some good tools out there. The key is you must use them, all right? So whatever it is, use it. And use it to the best of the software's ability. I know that's a bad answer, but I tried.
I was just curious if there was one that you endorsed.
Yeah, there's really, because they're all so varied and do different things. The reason I tell you about my spreadsheet is that you can see the future, and most of the softwares don't look out into the future, they only look in the past. And I like the future better. Okay? Anything else? I know we're getting to time. Like I said, I have business cards in the back. Pat is back, so I hope I have my keys.
Yes.
And you found more cards?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So I have keys and cards. So please, take my card. If you have questions, if you need anything, please pick up the phone and call me, send me an email. I'm more than happy to help in any way that I can. Thank you all very much.
Quick announcement.
Hold on.
If you did not sign in, please do so on the way out. And Kevin has always been very gracious about fielding individual questions. So some of you have those. Please take this out.